Hello, everyone, and thank you all for joining us this afternoon. Today, we have a couple of our dealer.com folks, e-commerce performance manager, Amanda Hilerio, along with our enterprise performance manager, Bill Cress. They're going to spend the next half hour to 45 minutes providing you all on some valuable insights on ways your dealership should look and treat digital leads differently. But before that, a couple of housekeeping items. We will have a Q&A time at the end. So if you do come up with any questions during the presentation, you can jot those down in the question bank that you will on your control panel in the upper right corner. There's a drop down for questions. So I'll be sure to keep track of those and we'll address those at the end. So with that being said, take it away.
All right, thank you so much. So what Bill and I are going to spend some time talking to you guys about is stopping deals from becoming leads to get the most out of digital retailing. Because these deals, these leads that come into your CRM are different. They contain different information and a different mindset from the shopper. So we're going to explore that a little bit today. As soon as my computer wants to cooperate, of course. Okay. So we'll talk a little bit about the why of digital retailing as just a refresher. We'll dive into the people and the processes in showroom, the best practices in handling leads in the showroom and the BDC, and then there'll be time for questions at the end. So it's no surprise, right? We've been talking about this for about 18 months now, that the market is unique and it's accelerated the changes and the shifts in the way shoppers buy cars, right? Some are looking more for safety and convenience, but regardless of their reasoning, they're buying cars. We know that, right? They're buying cars at record numbers and for record amounts, and website visits are up while showroom visits are down, right? So these are all things that we know and we've seen evolve over the last couple of years, but it's been accelerated in the last 18 months. So obviously, COVID has had an impact. We know that 89% of shoppers want to do at least some of the process online. But when we ask our shoppers to compare that to their last purchase, 64% want to do more of the process online this time they buy than they did the last time. So there's an evolution that we're seeing in shopper behavior. So as the new normal develops, and it will continue to evolve, we want to make sure we're setting you up with the tools and tips to thrive in the new environment. These better quality leads that come in from digital retailing, it's not kind of imaginary, it's really based on the amount of extra information the shoppers are giving. When it comes to a digital retailing lead, you're not just being given a name, email, address, and phone number, you're being given payments the customer has configured based on lenders that you've selected in the OEM programs. The customer's cash down, conditional incentives that they think they might qualify for. Trade information is included more than 80% of the time. Credit applications that can route directly into DealerTrack or Route 1 for you. F&I products, which you can, in most instances, even have set up with dynamic VIN-specific pricing through your provider. And shoppers can, if you choose to allow it, even self-schedule their test drive at home or at your dealership, right? So all that information is flowing into your CRM in the form of this lead. There are some mistakes that can be made, and then there's some adjustments you can make to really adjust what you do to best connect with that shopper, right? Because really, if they're giving you this much extra information, should they be handled like a name, email address, phone number, hey, is this car still in stock type of lead? They're better quality, of course. We've just talked about how much more information they are, but they've also done more research, right? And so it's important to keep that in mind This snapshot of a report that we have really helps illustrate that it's not just about the extra information that's in the lead, it's also about how much more invested the shopper was on your site prior to sending it, right? So what we see is shoppers who interact and build out payments on digital retailing view significantly more pages on your site. They, on average, spend about twice as much time on your site than a shopper who does not build payments. And in this particular instance, it was almost 3 times as much time on site. And they're far more likely to submit a lead form. Now, in today's day and age, we know that form leads have been a declining metric for nearly a decade. But if they're this much more likely to submit a form lead, how much more likely are they to click to call, engage in chat, send you a text message, click to call from their mobile device, or even walk in your showroom with a deal sitting on their phone in their pocket or purse? So that leads us into people and process, right? If we're going to acknowledge, and we sort of have to acknowledge at this point that these leads are a little bit different, and we're allowing these shoppers to engage with your dealership on their own in a digital retailing environment that kind of takes the burden off your staff, we have to at some point give them an opportunity to have your staff meet them at the point the shopper is in the process, right? So you need a real person to kind of take a look, digest what the shopper has done up to this point, and then respond accordingly so that you can meet the shopper where they are instead of pushing them into a backwards in the process, place the shopper's not at, right? So who's handling that? Are they the same people that handle your regular leads? Do they have the power to handle an offer? Do they have to touch desk and discuss price and payments with a manager? Are they good communicators, both written and on the phone? Is there a backup plan if that person's not available? How many leads is your average person handling in store? Right? Are they handling the entire process, cradle to grave? Or are they handling just for appointments and set them in? Or potentially, do you have the salespeople handling them? Right? So they're all variations in dealership processes. So when we look at the process and workflow, is the same process for a digital retailing lead as an internet lead? Should it be? Are the templates the same? Is your regular first response email that goes out to a standard form lead the same as what you're sending to a digital retail customer who's just sent in an inquiry? Is speed incentivized over quality? Who's responsible for making changes in your CRM for templates? Do they have different templates available for digital retailing? Do they have templates that address the trade? Because again, remember, with Cox Digital Retailing, Accelerate My Deal, more than 80% of the deals typically have trade information involved. Are the templates mobile friendly? Meaning, are they short and easy to read on that small screen? Can you intrigue them to click to read instead of swipe to delete in that fraction of a second? Obviously, when we talk about processes and people, we've obviously got to bring it over to the management and what decisions management has to make. So what processes have to be managed and what people need to be coached? If you had a customer in the showroom floor, would you manage it like a TO? Are salespeople held accountable for their responsibilities? When it comes to the internet, ask yourself, what's your TO process, right? Do you treat the shopper the same as if they're on the showroom floor? Does a manager call or email customers to see if they can make a deal? So who's responsible for overseeing the people who handle the leads, right? If you have somebody handling these opportunities that flow into your CRM and they have to leave and touch desk with a manager every time, is that going to give the shopper a seamless process? Are we empowering our staff to treat the customer as though they were in the showroom, right? Quick, easy, fast, simple process, very transparent. What are we measuring? Do the desk managers treat a TO coming over from an internet manager or BDC agent with the same level of intention and priority that they do from a showroom customer? Do they make any follow-up calls? So these are just some questions to get you started, right? Because the next part of this call is really going to flow into Bill's discussion of best practices and how to manage that, right? So before we get to that point, let's take a second and think about what we've talked about so far. Already at this point, are there any changes to your process regarding digital retailing leads that you think you might want to make? What about changes to your CRM workflow? This is a great time to take some notes and just try to jot down some ideas about what we might want to address as we move forward. Who will handle the changes to your templates? And do we have a TO process for leads so far? As we review where we are and start thinking about what we might want to revise to get us where we want to be, there are just some things we want to talk about, like what's working and what's not, right? What's going smoothly with your processes and where are there friction points or points where success starts to drop off that we need to address. If we find something broken in our process, you've got performance managers, both from a VIN solutions, your CRM performance manager, your digital retailing performance manager. You can reach out to folks to help you brainstorm ways to address any breaks you find in your processes. How are your individual people performing? Who's handling them the best and who's handling them the worst? Do we need to coach those that aren't doing as well? Or do we need to re-examine who gets the opportunities and give them to the folks who do better? If these are all questions you want to think about. Are pricing and rate structures still competitive? Do changes need to be made? So when you set up digital retailing, you might have set digital retailing up at the very beginning of the pandemic. You might have set them up with the knowledge that you couldn't have anybody in the showroom. And with no showroom opportunity, you wanted to put your absolute most aggressive payments out front. Well, then we had cars and we didn't have showrooms, and today we have traffic, but we don't have cars. So maybe there are some adjustments that you might want to make because the market's adjusted, right? It's not a set it and forget it tool. We want to make sure we remember that. Are lead responses spot checked for quality? Do you ever pull up a customer in your CRM who's come in from a digital retailing lead and digest the leads the shopper built, right? The deal that the customer took the time to put together and compare it to the responses that were sent? Do they align? Is management involved in responding to leads? Manager wouldn't let a customer leave the showroom without considering a TO. We want to make sure we're kind of thinking about these virtual shoppers the same way because they've spent a lot of time with us, even if it's virtually. Are you using digital retailing in your after hours responses, even for your non-digital retailing messaging? If, for example, a lead were to come in at 10 o'clock tonight, do you have an email firing out that says, "Thank you for your inquiry. Unfortunately, our offices are closed. We'll get back to you tomorrow when we're back in the office"? Or are you responding with, "Thanks so much for your inquiry. Unfortunately, our offices are closed right now, but our virtual showroom is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and there you can explore our entire inventory. Find something that you like, that suits your needs. You can even start to personalize your payments. Value your trade. Apply for credit. Examine, explore special incentives from the manufacturer. You can even apply for credit and schedule a test drive, all from the comfort of your home. And don't worry, tomorrow when our offices reopen, I'll pick up where you left off and we'll help you get this done together quickly, right? You really want to make sure you're selling this as part of your culture and a benefit of doing business with you. And the more you embrace it and make it part of your culture, the more pervasive it is in your language and your conversations, the more everybody will become comfortable with it. So now it's off to Bill to discuss some more best practices.
Thanks a lot, Amanda. Appreciate it. And my name is Bill Cress, and we want to start talking about some of the best practices for handling these opportunities, these leads, and make sure that they're handled properly both in the showroom and the BDC. So next slide, please. Amanda, can you advance? There we go. Thank you. So
it was stuck, sorry.
That's okay. So when we look at breaking it down into nice simple steps for an overview of what the process should be, right? The first key for identifying a for working a digital retailing lead is really identifying it as a digital retailing lead. And there's the best way to do that through any CRM is look at either your source or your lead source or your advertising source, whatever the source is that the lead came in from. Always look for that. If you get in the habit of that, you'll recognize your digital retailing leads a lot quicker. Especially they'll say either Cox Digital Retailing or they'll say Accelerate Digital Retail or something like that. But you'll notice them pretty quickly. If they do say that, there's going to be a link that you can click on that allows you to see exactly how the deal is structured, what steps the customer's completed, and the details of the lead. And it's important that you read those details. Now, when you're reading through those details, one of the things you want to look for, as Amanda mentioned earlier, is you want to look for a trade, right? Because more than 80% of these leads are going to have a trade. And when you're looking for that trade, you want to look at it from a positive perspective. You want to look at it like, hey, we need this vehicle. You want to let that customer know we need your vehicle, and who knows, we may even be able to give you more for it. You want to make sure that you put forth a positive attitude about their trade. Another thing that you want to look at when you're looking at these details, and you want to look to see what's changed. Now, when we set up digital retailing, we set it up with defaults, and those defaults would be like things like maybe 10% down, could be whatever percentage you guys want to use, but most dealers use something around 10%. Either very good or excellent credit. That's a decision, again, that your management team is making at your dealership on what they want their defaults to be. It could be a lease, it could be a purchase. That's, again, another choice that you make. And for leases, what term that you're using, what mileage. For finance deals, it's going to be whatever term gives you the best payment, right? So you want to look to see, did the customer change something? We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute, but what changes is oftentimes the customer's hot button. So when you're getting ready to respond to the customer and you are responding, you want to be specific too. You don't want to do things like the typical response we see to leads over and over again, which is, thank you for your inquiry on the new 2021 Honda Accord. Good news, the Accord is available. When would you like to come in to take a test drive, right? Instead, you want to be very specific. It says, hey, thank you for your information, your inquiry about the 2021 Honda Accord. The Accord is available, and I see that you were putting down $2,000 and you were looking to finance this for 72 months with a payment of $476. Whatever it is that the customer put in that detail that they sent you, you want to be able to confirm it. You also want to acknowledge the work that they've done. You want to let that customer know, hey, it looks like you've done most of the deal. You've done your payments, you've done your trade, you've scheduled a test drive, and the only thing you have left really to do is fill out your credit app. if you do that, it could save you a lot of time when you arrive at the store. So what we want to do is we want to let that customer know that we can see where they've done most of the deal, and we're just here to help them save some time when they arrive. And the last one is you want to be ready to be flexible. And when I say you want to be ready to be flexible, you want to be able to offer things like home delivery, or maybe a walk around of the new car through FaceTime. Maybe even we'll let the customer do a walk around of their vehicle through FaceTime. In other words, they walk around their car that they're getting ready to trade. And that, in any case, it creates a conversation. And for most of you on this call, if you can get a conversation going with a customer, most likely you can make a sale. So next slide, Amanda. Thank you. So let's talk about identifying the lead. And so if you are using Vin Solutions as a CRM, which is what you see on the screen right here, you'll see in the little green boxes where we have, where it's going to say like accelerate my deal. Some OEMs will change the labeling on that a little bit, but it'll either usually have the word accelerate or it's going to have the word digital retailing, one of the two. So if you see that, you want to tap the brakes a little bit and stop worrying about ultimately the speed of how you respond, but the quality of your response. Now, if you're using Vin, you'll also see the word accelerate in there. And if you click that word accelerate, it opens up basically a new window, and that new window breaks down the deal for you. It makes it really, really easy to see. Now, on the left-hand side, you'll see what activities the customer's completed. For example, have they calculated their payments, right? We call that selected financing terms. And have they included a trade? And if so, you see that. But it also could be things like, for example, have they looked at specials such as college graduate, military, owner loyalty, things like that. You might also see things like, have they shown interest in F&I products, or have they scheduled a test drive, or they filled out their credit app. You get to see exactly which of those steps that they've taken so that you know which ones you need to help them complete going forward. On the right-hand side, you're going to see the details of the lead, and you're going to look for things like, for example, did they change the price, or is the price still the same as the advertised figure? What kind of payment were they looking for? What was their credit tier? How many months were they looking to finance or lease this for? And if it was a lease, how many miles? You'll see things like, did they include their taxes and fees? And you'll see things like, did they have equity in their trade? And what the trade information was. For example, it was what year, make, model, how many miles, and what condition did they call the car in when they got the Kelly value. Next page. So when you look at this information, you gathered this information, it's time to respond. And you want to respond with the acknowledging the work that's already been done. And we're going to show you an example of an email template. Now, when you're using an email template to respond to these, it should be a different template than what you use for your regular leads. When you are doing this, you want to make sure that you are looking and pulling that information over into the template. So Amanda, advance it one, please. So here's an example of one we created. It says, thank you for using Customize Your Deal tool, right? That's a label that we put on it. Some dealers call it different things, but you customize your deal. Thanks for using the Customize Your Deal tool on our site regarding the 2021 Honda Accord. Good news, the Accord is available, and we can see where you've completed most of the deal from home. You were planning on putting down $2,000 down at signing, and we can see where you calculated your own payment at $467 a month based on excellent credit, right? And we're very interested in your 2017 Honda Accord that you plan to trade. If you bring it by so we can see it, we may be able to get you a little more for it. When could you bring it by? To save time, click here to get pre-approved. It could be a hyperlink, right? And we can have everything ready for you to go when you get here. Please call, text, or email me, and we can walk you through the rest of the process and have you in and out of the dealership in about an hour. We look forward to speaking with you soon. So that's an example of of a template that you could use, but notice it's relatively short, doesn't go into a whole lot of extra detail, but the short, quick, readable with lots of good detail there is what the customer's looking for. Next slide. So again, we want to make sure we do look for that trade. The trade is these leads are very different from other leads you get, because most leads you get don't even give you the consumer the opportunity to add a trade, but ours do, and it actually encourages the customer to do so. And you'll find that over 80% of these leads do have a trade involved. Okay, next page. Now, in addition, when you're talking to the customer about the trade, here's some best practices we've uncovered from some very successful dealers. So the first thing to let that customer know when you're talking to them about their vehicle is that we need your vehicle. And it doesn't matter what it is, we need your vehicle. That's an attitude that you've got to really take and let the customer feel that you know that. The second thing is, don't use the word appraise or we need to appraise your vehicle. Don't use that with the consumer. To a consumer, that means you're going to get less for your car than you think it's worth, right? Instead, use words like, we'd like to see your vehicle, right? Who knows, we might be able to give you a little bit more for it. Be positive and give that customer a hope for gain. But use the words, we need to see your vehicle, right? That also sets the stage for a face-to-face meeting, which all of us would prefer to have, right? Last, create a sense of urgency. We've all had leads before where the customer says, you know, I was just kind of getting an idea of what it's going to be like, you know, probably not in the market for another couple of months. Well, what we want to do is we want to let that customer know that their vehicle is worth more today than it's ever been before. And right now may actually be the best time for them to trade, right? So we want to make sure we get that idea across, create that sense of urgency. Now, in those times where there's not a trade, or even when they do have a trade, there's certain other details that you want to look for that might be the hot buttons. For example, one of the things that I always look for is credit tiers. So if the customer says they have fair or poor credit, you know, give them confidence that we can get them done, right? Consider them telling something like it's not going to be a problem, and our dealership specializes in giving people a second chance, right? When you're talking about credit tier, that customers who put down fair or poor, their biggest concern may not be the payment amount or the interest rate or the selling price. Their biggest concern may be, can you get me approved? Right? So down payments, we've set up a default for you for your down payments, usually typically 10%. But if the down payment is smaller, if the customers change that to a smaller number, let them know it's not going to be a problem, right? If it's a larger number than the default, though, compliment them on their investment. Tell them, hey, you know, that's a really smart idea. That can save you money in the long run. Terms. If a customer changes that term to a shorter term to get a special rate or something like that, compliment them on their decision. Tell them that's a smart move. But also use those special rates to create a sense of urgency. Let them know, hey, you know, we're running low on inventory right now. The rates are on 2021 models only. We'll be out of those very soon. And of course, the rate's going to be expiring soon anyway. So if you want the car that you want at the rate you want, this is the best time to do it. And last is, we call it repeat, but that's continue to remind the customers the steps they've taken. You know, let them know using the tool can save them some time at the dealership. You know, the amount of time it takes to buy a car is their #1 complaint. So if we can say, hey, this can save you time at the dealership and help you complete the rest of the process, this is going to help you win people who are happy about the process as opposed to just about how much money they save. Next slide. Next. So you can also use your digital retailing tools on the phone. So one of the things that we found that's pretty interesting is when customers call in, they tend to ask what I refer to as buying questions. So one of their buying questions they might ask is, well, what's my payment? And if they ask you that, rather than hemming and hawing and saying, well, you know, gee, I got to go ask the boss and all that stuff. Well, it depends on your credit and all that stuff. Instead, you can say, have you seen the tools on our website? You can easily calculate your own payments online and play with different options that are there, right? So that's one way you can handle it. Another buying question that customers often ask on the phone is, well, what's my trade worth? And your response can be, well, have you seen the tools on our website? You can quickly determine the value of the exact trade-in online. So those are tools that are available there. And the last question customers oftentimes ask is, can you get me approved? And your response can be something like, well, we have an online credit application that allows you to get pre-approved before you shop. If you provide me your email address, hey, I can send you a link. So those are all things that you can use your digital retailing tool for, not just with that customer who's shopping online, but the customers on the phone as well. Next. So today we've covered a lot of things. And before this webinar is over with, I want you to start thinking about what do you want to do different at your dealership? Because if you continue doing the same thing, you're going to get the same result, right? So what's the number one thing that you want to change when you get back to your store? And I'd like you to take a second and write that down. Now, in addition to that, for that number one thing you want to change, who is going to be responsible for making that change or those changes? Who's going to be? Put that person's name down. And next, when should these changes be completed? Because if you don't give a completion date due for these changes, they'll never get done, right? And the last question that you need to ask yourself is, how will you measure success? How will you measure success? If it does this, or if I achieve this, what will that be what I consider successful? So those are the things that you need to write notes about. Next question, next slide, please. So adopting digital retailing and a digital mindset's absolutely imperative in today's world because the world has changed. COVID changed our world. And we now have customers who are doing much more of the process online, and these changes are happening at a faster rate than we ever expected. So we hope you enjoyed this. We hope you got some things out of this that you can use. And we're now going to open this up for any questions that any of you may have. So we're opening it up for questions.
All right, thank you, Amanda and Bill. Great information, valuable. A couple questions have come in. So the first one is, who are the ideal staff members to handle leads?
So Amanda, you want to take that one?
So, yeah, I'll take that one. So ideally, the person you want handling these leads is somebody who is empowered has the ability to read and digest the deal that the shopper has built and interpret what the shopper's looking for, right? To read those digital breadcrumbs and understand the direction the shopper's trying to go. And even better, if they have some authority to start to work that deal with the shopper, right? Some stores might have the bandwidth. They might maybe get 40 or 60 of these a month, and they say, you know what, my managers can handle on average 2 of these a day, and my managers are going to handle it. Some stores might have a couple of senior BDC members that have been in the business a while and are really in tune with this and have some authority to work deals. And in some stores, they might have some sales staff that are really engaged. Potentially, they've been in the business a long time and they used to be management in other stores and now they're just taking it easy, right? You know your staff and your team's skill set better than I can claim to. But look at your staff and the skill set and what these shoppers are really ultimately looking to achieve, and match your staff to what this is and get the right people involved, right? Now, sometimes that'll be the BDC, sometimes it'll be sales teams, sometimes it'll be managers. I'll leave that up to you, but try to match skill sets with what this deal is really about.
And to add to that, you want to make sure that the people are not overloaded with work already, right? So you want to make sure it's within their bandwidth. And of course, the other thing is you want to inspect whatever you expect them to do. So if you just say, hey, this person's going to be a digital retailing manager, and let them run off on their own and not hold them accountable, your results are going to be mediocre at best.
I like that answer.
Exactly.
All right. And then another question we have here is, have you seen dealers successfully leverage video in responses?
As a matter of fact, I have. I've got a few of my dealers who are using video, but when they use video, the ones that I've seen be effective are personalized video. They actually make a short, like 30-second to 1-minute video that addresses things directly to the customer. They name the customer. They confirm the information that the customer was looking for, and confirm the information the customer provided, and really do a nice job of selling themselves and the dealership in that short video. But yeah, I've seen customers do it. Dealers do it very successfully. I think it's a great idea.
Especially as of late, yeah. All right, do we have any other questions? Let's take a look. Anything else? All righty, well, that is all for now. If you do have any questions, feel free to send an email our way. You can do it at the email address that you received, that you have the link for, and we'll be happy to respond. But with that being said, thank you again for joining us this afternoon. Thank you, Bill and Amanda. We appreciate everybody's time.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, everybody. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good day.